Good morning, everybody. Welcome to week 12. I know that it's Tuesday and not Monday, but I really do have good reasons for not having a video up yesterday. I had a really busy weekend having to do with my doctoral dissertation. I only got about 4 hours sleep by the time yesterday morning rolled around, and I only got 1 hour sleep Sunday night. So by the time that rolled around, I just basically went to school, taught my classes, and then I went home and went back to bed. And yesterday afternoon, I was kind of woozy as well. So here we are back and ready to take on the 12th week. So there will be two postings this week, one on Virginia Woolf and one on the World War II poetry. What I really want you to pay attention to in the Virginia Woolf section is the part about Shakespeare's sister. It's Virginia Woolf was a feminist critic, and she was very vocal about her feminism, and she really, in A Room of One's Own, there's a famous quote which I don't think is in your reading that says, "All a woman needs to be happy is an income and a room of one's own where she can write." But when she's talking about writing, she talks about Shakespeare's sister, and she puts forth a hypothetical situation, and it's not a true situation because Shakespeare didn't have any sisters as far as we know. We think that Shakespeare might have been an only child, but she puts forth a situation where what if Shakespeare did have a sister? And what if she was just as much of a genius as Shakespeare was? And what if she was just as talented a writer and just as talented in theater? And yet, because she was a woman at that time, she would not have been allowed to express her creativity. She would have been expected to marry as a teenager and pop out kids like a Pez dispenser. So, in Virginia Woolf's scenario, the sister goes crazy, and that's a bad thing. So, pay attention to that section. Of course, pay attention to the whole thing, but especially that Shakespeare's sister section of the Virginia Woolf reading. Then we got World War II. Now, last week we looked at World War I, and the world had never seen anything like World War I. It was a super destructive war that scarred Europe for many years. World War II would top that, and nobody thought it was possible around 1919 and 1920 after World War I had ended. But by the late 1930s, early 1940s, Hitler, of course, had taken over Germany, and he unleashed a war that we haven't seen since, and we hopefully never will see. Because World War I was kind of, there were countries from all around the world in it, but it was mostly Eurocentric. World War II was a world war. We, as the United States, were at war with both Germany and Japan at the same time. There was almost no country that anyone could think of, except perhaps for Belgium, that was isolated from the war itself. So, that is World War II. The poetry that I have you reading, which is Three Guineas by Virginia Woolf, and actually Three Guineas is not a poem. Three Guineas is an argument, again, by Virginia Woolf, that's actually about, again, because she was a feminist, she was talking about women still did not have certain rights in England at the time that World War II broke out. And women were still expected to be wives and mothers. So Virginia Woolf said, hey, you're saying you're fighting this war to protect us, but we're not getting any direct benefit. And you say that we are British subjects, and yet we don't have certain rights that the British men have. Therefore, as a woman, I am going to declare that I have no country. And so that's her argument there. And then this other one with the complicated name, which is Vergisch Meinnicht, or Vergisch Meinnicht, or something like that, by Douglas. That is a poem about a dead soldier that people come across, and they find that he's got a little journal and he's got a love letter from his girlfriend in it. And the point is that, hey, we're killing 18 and 19-year-old German boys, but they're just boys. They're not the reasons why we're at war. The leaders of Germany, like Hitler and his bunch, that's who we're at war with. But yet, because of that, young men in their prime are dying, and that's not right. And even German men have girlfriends that love them and are waiting for them to return home. So that is this week's readings. Now, one final comment. Because of all the other obligations that I had that kept me from sleeping this past weekend, I've fallen a couple of weeks behind on the postings grading. So my first priority, before I grade anything else in any other class, is to go through your postings and start putting numbers on them as grades. If you want specific comments, I can give them to you. You can request those. But basically, I'm going to go through and do a reading and stick a number on it based on how well you answer the question and how well your grammar looks and things like that. So that's really all I've got. So again, as always, feel free to call me on my phone. Feel free to email me. If you're on campus, feel free to drop by my office and say, hey, I am your student in British Lit, and I can put a face to the name, and I really like that. So with that in mind, I hope you have a good week. I hope you enjoy the Virginia Woolf portion of the semester, and I look forward to seeing what you've had to say in those postings.